and I watched as realization dawned on his face. His complexion darkened, and he swallowed hard.
Finny, I can explain.
Explain what exactly? I cut in. How you married Mercy pretending to represent a brother who isn't even expecting a bride. How you bought a house for her in Asia. Or maybe you'd like to explain the baby she's carrying. Alicia's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For once in his life, my smooth-talking husband was speechless. My name is Finny Emmanuel, and this is the story of how I discovered the ultimate betrayal. The evening sun glowed orange through our living room curtains as Alicia, my husband of 8 years, arrived home from work. I could tell from the way he slammed his car door that something was on his mind. That was Elisha for you. His movements always betrayed his emotions before his words had the chance.
Finny,
He called out as he entered our 3-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1. We had moved here 3 years ago after Elisha's promotion at the bank, where he works as a financial analyst.
Finny, where are you?
In the kitchen, I responded, stirring the agusi soup that had been simmering for the past hour. The aroma of ground melon seeds, stockfish, and crayfish filled our home. Elisha appeared at the kitchen doorway, loosening his tie. At 36, he was still as handsome as the day we met at the University of Lagos 10 years ago, tall with broad shoulders and a smile that could charm even the most difficult market woman into giving a discount.
I have gist.
He announced, his eyes gleaming with excitement. I turned down the heat on the stove. What kind of gist?
My brother Graham is finally getting married.
I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Graham, Elisha's elder brother, had been living in Canada for over 12 years. He rarely visited Nigeria, always claiming his job as a petroleum engineer kept him too busy to make the trip. The last time he came home was for our wedding, and even then, he only stayed for 5 days. That's wonderful news, I said, genuinely happy. Who is the lucky woman?
Her name is Mercy. She's from Delta State. They met online 2 years ago when she was doing her master's program in Toronto. She returned to Nigeria last year to start a business.
Elisha helped himself to a piece of meat from the pot. I slapped his hand playfully. Wait for dinner, Jaw, I scolded. So, when is the wedding? Will Graham come home for it? Alicia's expression changed. He looked a bit uncomfortable as he leaned against the counter.
That's the thing. Graham can't make it for the wedding. His company is handling a major project and he can't take leave now. But he doesn't want to postpone the wedding because Mercy's family is pressuring them. You know how our people can be about these things.
I nodded understandingly. Traditional marriages in Nigeria often involve complex negotiations between families. Delays could be interpreted as lack of seriousness. So what will happen? Will they do a court wedding in Canada and then come for the traditional ceremony later?
No.
Alicia said, hesitating slightly.
Graham wants me to stand in for him at the wedding. It's an old custom in some parts of our land. A close relative can represent the groom if he's unavailable. All the legal papers will have Graham's name, but I'll physically take part in the ceremony.
I switched off the stove completely and turned to face my husband. You mean you'll be the groom at the wedding?
Yes, but just as a representative, everything will be in Graham's name. The marriage certificate, property documents, everything.
I considered this. It sounded unusual, but not entirely unheard of. I had a distant cousin whose husband was represented by his younger brother at their traditional wedding because he was studying abroad. When is the wedding? I asked.
In 2 months. And there's something else.
Elisha paused.
Graham wants us to help Mercy with the wedding preparations. She doesn't have many friends or family in Lagos.
Little did I know that this conversation would be the beginning of the most elaborate deception I had ever experienced. The following weekend, Elisha took me to meet Mercy at a cafe in Victoria Island. I had imagined all sorts of things about her. Perhaps she would be loud and flashy, or quiet and bookish. But Mercy was none of these things. She was simply perfect. She stood up when she saw us approach her table, and the first thing I noticed was her height. She was tall, almost as tall as Alicia. Her skin was the color of honey, smooth and glowing. Her braids were pulled back into a neat bun, emphasizing her high cheekbones and bright eyes. But what struck me most was her smile, warm and genuine.
You must be Finny,
she said, extending her hand.
Alicia has told me so much about you.
Her voice was soft with a slight accent that hinted at her time abroad. We shook hands, and I felt instantly at ease with her. It's nice to finally meet you too, I replied. Congratulations on your engagement. As we sat down, a waiter approached to take our orders. Mercy asked for a Chapman, Alicia ordered a beer, and I settled for fresh orange juice.
Thank you for agreeing to help with the wedding,
Mercy said once the waiter left.
I'm sorry Graham can't be here. He sends his regards.
It's our pleasure, I assured her. Family is family. We're happy to stand by you during this important time. Over the next hour, Mercy told us about herself. She was 32, had studied international business in Canada, and had returned to Nigeria to start an importing business. She spoke about her family in Delta, her siblings scattered across different countries, and how she met Graham through a mutual friend's Facebook page.
We started chatting, then video calling, and before I knew it, I was in love,
she said with a shy smile.
Graham is a good man, so thoughtful, so kind.
As she spoke, I noticed Elisha watching her with an intensity that made me slightly uncomfortable, but I brushed it off as curiosity about his brother's choice of partner. I'm sure he is, I replied. He's always been the serious one between the two brothers. Mercy laughed.
Yes, Graham told me Alicia was the playful one growing up.
Still is, I said, nudging my husband playfully. Throughout our conversation, I found myself liking Mercy more and more. She was intelligent, articulate, and had a subtle sense of humor that drew you in. By the time we finished our drinks, I had already decided that Graham was a lucky man. Where are you staying? I asked as we prepared to leave.
I rented a small apartment in Surrey for now.
Mercy replied.
Until after the wedding, then I'll move to the house Graham bought in Aja.
That's quite far from the city centre, I commented.
Yes, but the property is beautiful. Elisha helped Graham secure it. Haven't you seen it?
Mercy asked, looking genuinely surprised. I glanced at Elisha. No, I haven't. Elisha cleared his throat.
I meant to show you, but it's been so busy at work. It's an investment property Graham bought last year.
There was something off about the way Elisha avoided my eyes, but again, I dismissed it. Perhaps he felt bad for not telling me about Graham's property investment. We should visit it together sometime, I suggested.
Definitely.
Mercy agreed enthusiastically.
Maybe next weekend?
And so began my friendship with my brother-in-law's fiancé. Over the next few weeks, Mercy and I became close as we threw ourselves into wedding preparations. We visited event centers, met with caterers, selected fabrics for ASOEB, and designed invitation cards. Through it all, Mercy was gracious and appreciative of my help.
I don't know what I would have done without you, Finny,
she said one evening as we sat in her living room, going through photos of different cake designs.
Planning a wedding in a city where you don't have many friends is hard.
That's what family is for, I assured her, and soon you'll be my sister-in-law officially. Mercy smiled, but there was something sad in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. Before I could ask what was wrong, my phone rang. It was Alicia, asking about dinner plans. I should go, I said, gathering my things. Elisha is waiting for me at home.
Of course,
Mercy said, walking me to the door.
Thank Elisha for me too. He's been so supportive, calling every day to check on the preparations. Just like his brother.
As I drove home that evening, I thought about how strange it was that despite all our conversations, I had never once spoken to Graham. Whenever I asked to talk to him during Mercy's video calls with him, there was always an excuse. He was at work, the time difference was an issue, or his phone was having problems. But I trusted my husband. Why wouldn't I? Alicia had never given me a reason to doubt him in our 8 years of marriage. The wedding day arrived faster than we expected. The event center in Ikeja was transformed into a fairy tale setting with white and gold decor. Guests arrived in beautiful traditional attires. the women in elaborate jewels, and the men in well-tailored agbada. As the wife of the groom's representative, I had a special role. I wore a heavy gold and coral bead necklace that belonged to Alicia's mother, with matching earrings and a hand-woven gold and white George wrapper. My makeup was flawless, courtesy of Lagos's most sought-after makeup artist. Mercy had insisted on paying for it.
You look beautiful.
Alicia whispered when he saw me. He was resplendent in a white agbada with gold embroidery. The ceremony was elaborate. Mercy's family had come in full force from Delta, and our side was represented by Alicia's parents, cousins, aunts, and uncles. The only person missing was the actual groom. During the traditional ceremony, I watched as Alicia performed all the duties of a groom, prostrating before Mercy's parents, offering gifts, and participating in the symbolic search for his bride among the other women. The joy on his face seemed too real for someone who was merely standing in for his brother. But the moment that truly unsettled me came during the exchange of vows at the church ceremony. As the pastor asked Alicia to place the ring on Mercy's finger, a proxy gesture meant to symbolize Graham's commitment, I saw something pass between them. A look so intimate, so charged with emotion, that I felt like an intruder witnessing it.
By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you man and wife.
The pastor declared.
Mr. Graham Emanuel in absentia and Mrs. Mercy Emanuel are now husband and wife.
The congregation erupted in cheers. I clapped too, pushing away the unease that had settled in my stomach. The reception that followed was grand, with plenty of food, drinks, and dancing. I threw myself into my role as the supportive sister-in-law, making sure everything ran smoothly. But throughout the celebration, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. Later that night, exhausted from the day's events, I confronted Alicia. "You seemed very involved today," I said carefully as we prepared for bed. Alicia paused while unbuttoning his shirt.
What do you mean?
"I don't know. It just felt like you were really enjoying being the groom." He laughed, but it sounded forced.
I was just playing my part well. Graham would have done the same for me.
"I suppose," I said, not entirely convinced. "When is Graham planning to visit his new wife?"
He's trying to arrange leave for Christmas.
Elisha replied, turning away to hang his shirt.
It's still 6 months away, but at least they're officially married now.
I nodded, deciding to let it go. Perhaps I was overthinking things, seeing problems where there were none. But as the weeks passed after the wedding, my suspicions grew. Alicia was increasingly absent, claiming work meetings and late nights at the office. Mercy called me less frequently, and when we did meet, she seemed distracted and sometimes even guilty. One evening, about 3 months after the wedding, I decided to surprise Alicia at his office. He had mentioned a late meeting, so I thought I'd bring him dinner. When I arrived at the bank where he worked, the security guard looked confused.
Oga Alicia? He left around 4 o'clock today.
The guard said. "Are you sure?" He mentioned a late meeting.
No meeting today, madam. Most offices closed early because of the public holiday tomorrow.
I thanked him and returned to my car, a cold feeling settling in my chest. Where was Alicia if not at work? I called his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Acting on an impulse, I drove to Mercy's apartment in Surulere. I had only been there a few times since the wedding, usually during the day when Alicia was at work. As I approached her street, I slowed down, not sure what I expected to find. Mercy's apartment was on the second floor of a modest building. As I parked across the street, I noticed Alicia's car in the compound. My heart pounded as I sat there, staring at his car. There could be a reasonable explanation, I told myself. Perhaps he was helping her with something related to Graham. Perhaps there was an issue with the immigration papers for Mercy to join Graham in Canada. But deep down, I knew. I didn't confront them that day. Instead, I drove home and waited for Alicia to return, which he did around 9 o'clock, smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't mine. "How was the meeting?" I asked casually as he walked in.
Productive.
He replied without meeting my eyes.
We finally closed that deal I told you about.
I nodded, letting him believe I accepted his lie. But inside, something had changed. The trust that had been the foundation of our marriage had cracked, and I feared it was beyond repair. Over the next few weeks, I began to pay closer attention to the patterns. Elisha's late meetings always fell on the same days of the week. His phone was increasingly guarded, and most telling of all, Mercy had stopped inviting me to her place. Then came the confirmation I wasn't prepared for. I had gone to the new ShopRite at Ikeja City Mall to buy groceries when I bumped into Mercy. She was in the baby section, examining a tiny onesie with a thoughtful expression. She didn't see me at first, and I watched as she placed a hand on her stomach, a gesture so maternal, so instinctive, that there was no mistaking it. She was pregnant. When she finally noticed me, her face paled. She quickly put the onesie back on the rack.
Fini, what a surprise.
She said, her voice higher than usual. I was just getting some groceries, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. How have you been?
Good. Just, shopping for my cousin's baby shower.
But her eyes couldn't meet mine, and her hand unconsciously went back to her stomach. Congratulations, I said quietly.
What?
The baby. Congratulations. Mercy's eyes widened in panic.
Fini,
How far along are you? I asked, maintaining a calmness I didn't feel. She hesitated.
4 months.
I did the math quickly. The wedding was 5 months ago. If she was 4 months pregnant, that meant... Is it Graham's? I asked, already knowing the answer. Tears filled Mercy's eyes.
Fini, please let me explain.
But I turned and walked away, leaving my half-filled shopping cart in the aisle. I couldn't bear to hear whatever explanation or excuse she had prepared. As I drove home, pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The house in Aja that I had never seen. The way Elisha and Mercy looked at each other during the wedding. The late-night meetings. The lack of direct communication with Graham. There was no Graham coming to Nigeria to claim his bride. There probably wasn't even a Graham waiting in Canada. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My husband had married another woman right before my eyes, with me helping to plan and execute the wedding. When I reached home, I went straight to Elisha's study and began searching through his files. In the back of a drawer, I found a folder labeled Property Documents. Inside were papers for a house in Aja, not in Graham's name, but in Elisha's. There were also bank statements showing regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize, and, most damning of all, a sonogram dated 2 weeks ago with Mercy's name on it. My hands trembled as I placed everything back exactly as I had found it. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. That night, when Elisha came home, I pretended everything was normal. I served his favorite dish, jollof rice with grilled chicken, and listened as he talked about his day. I laughed at his jokes and updated him on my own activities, carefully omitting my encounter with Mercy. Looking at him across the dining table, I wondered how I had missed the signs. Had love blinded me so completely? Or had Elisha simply become a master at deception? The next day, I called my best friend Amara and asked her to meet me at a quiet cafe away from our usual haunts. Amara had been my confidant since university days, and if anyone could offer clear-headed advice, it was her. "You won't believe what I discovered," I said after we had ordered our drinks. Amara listened in shock as I recounted everything, from the initial announcement about Graham's wedding to my discovery at the mall.
Wait,
She interrupted when I mentioned the wedding ceremony.
so you're telling me Elisha married this Mercy woman, pretending it was for his brother, and you actually helped plan the wedding?
Yes, I replied, the absurdity of the situation hitting me anew. I chose her bouquet, her cake, even helped her pick out her wedding dress. Amara shook her head in disbelief.
This is some Nollywood drama-level deception, and now she's pregnant?
4 months along.
What are you going to do?
That was the question I'd been asking myself all night. What does a woman do when she discovers her husband has secretly married another woman and is expecting a child with her? I don't know yet, I admitted. Part of me wants to confront him immediately, pack my bags and leave, But another part,
Another part what?
Amara pressed. Another part wants to understand why. Why go through such an elaborate charade? Why not just ask for a divorce if he wanted to be with Mercy? Amara reached across the table and squeezed my hand.
Men can be cowards, Finny. Sometimes it's easier for them to build a new life secretly than to work for the one they already have.
Her words resonated with me. Alicia had always avoided confrontation. Even in our worst arguments, he would retreat rather than engage in conflict. Perhaps this was his way of having everything he wanted without facing the mess of ending our marriage. I need proof, I said finally. Concrete proof that I can confront him with, something he can't deny or explain away. Amara nodded.
Then get it. But be careful. Don't let him know that you know until you're ready to act.
Over the next week, I became a detective in my own marriage. I followed Elisha one evening when he claimed to have a dinner with clients. He drove straight to Aja, to a gated community with large, modern houses. I watched from across the street as he parked in front of a 2-story building with a well-manicured lawn. Mercy opened the door before he could knock, greeting him with a kiss. I took pictures with my phone, my hands shaking with anger and betrayal. The next day, I visited my parents in Ikoyi. My father, a retired judge, had always been my rock. My mother, a businesswoman who ran a successful chain of fashion boutiques, was the practical voice I needed. Papa, Mama, I said after ensuring the house helps were out of earshot. I need your advice on something difficult. I shared my discovery, showing them the pictures I had taken. My father's expression darkened with each word, while my mother's face remained surprisingly calm.
Have you confronted him?
My father asked when I finished. Not yet. I wanted to be sure of my next steps first. My mother reached for my hand.
What do you want, Finny? Forget what society expects or what we might want for you. What do you want?
Her question caught me off guard. What did I want? Did I want to save my marriage? Did I want revenge? Did I want to walk away with my dignity intact? I started, then paused. I want justice. I want him to acknowledge what he's done and face the consequences. My father nodded approvingly.
Then you need to be strategic. This isn't just about emotions. It's about securing your future.
For the next hour, we discussed my options. By the time I left my parents' house, I had a plan. 3 days later, I sat in our living room waiting for Alicia to return from work. On the coffee table in front of me were printed copies of the evidence I had gathered. The property documents, bank statements, pictures of Alicia entering and leaving the Aja house, and a screenshot of a conversation I had found on his tablet between him and Mercy discussing baby names. When I heard his key in the lock, I took a deep breath and straightened my back. This was it, the confrontation I had been rehearsing in my mind.
Finny, I'm home.
Elisha called out cheerfully.
Something smells good.
He walked into the living room, still in his work clothes, a smile on his face that faltered when he saw my serious expression.
Is everything okay?
He asked, his eyes not yet noticing the papers on the table. Sit down, Elisha, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. We need to talk. He sat on the edge of the sofa, his body language immediately defensive.
What's going on?
Instead of answering, I pushed the documents toward him. Perhaps you can explain these to me. Elisha glanced down, and I watched as realization dawned on his face. His complexion darkened, and he swallowed hard.
Finny, I can explain.
Explain what exactly? I cut in. How you married Mercy pretending to represent a brother who isn't even expecting a bride. How you bought a house for her in Aja. Or maybe you'd like to explain the baby she's carrying. Alicia's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For once in his life, my smooth-talking husband was speechless. I saw Mercy at the mall, I continued. She's showing now. 4 months, she said. Conceived right around the time of the wedding, I presume.
It's not what you think.
He finally managed. No? Then what is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're a polygamist with a pregnant second wife. Elisha ran his hands over his face.
I never meant to hurt you.
A bitter laugh escaped me. Yet here we are. You know what the worst part is? Not the affair, not even the secret marriage. It's that you made me complicit in my own humiliation. You had me plan your wedding to another woman, Elisha. Do you have any idea how cruel that is? Tears filled his eyes.
I was going to tell you. After the baby...
After the baby what? After the baby was born? After you had fully established your second family? When exactly were you planning to let me know that our marriage was a sham?
Our marriage isn't a sham.
He protested weakly.
I still love you.
Love? I shook my head in disbelief. This isn't love, Elisha. This is selfishness and wickedness of the highest order. You wouldn't have done this to me if you loved me. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 8 years and 1,000 broken promises between us.
What happens now?
Elisha finally asked, his voice small. I had thought long and hard about this question. In the days since discovering his betrayal, I had cycled through rage, grief, confusion, and finally, a strange kind of clarity. Now, I said, you have a choice to make. Option 1, I file for divorce, citing adultery and bigamy. I take half of everything we own, including your shares in the bank. Option 2, you sign over the Aja house to me as compensation for the emotional damage you've caused. You move out of this house within a week. We still get divorced, but without the public scandal that would ruin your career and reputation. Elisha looked stunned.
You want the house? What about Mercy and the baby?
That's for you to figure out. You created this mess. You deal with the consequences.
Finny, please, can't we talk about this? Find a way to...
To what? Continue living a lie? I've made my decision, Elisha. Now you need to make yours. I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. As I walked toward our bedroom, soon to be just mine, Elisha called after me.
I never meant for any of this to happen. It started as a mistake, and then it just spiraled.
I paused but didn't turn around. Life is a series of choices, Elisha. You made yours. Now I'm making mine. That night, I slept in the guest bedroom, locking the door behind me. As I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, I thought about the future that stretched before me, uncertain and terrifying, but also somehow full of possibility. For the first time in my marriage, I had taken control. I had refused to be a victim. Morning came, and with it, Elisha's decision. He stood in the kitchen as I prepared tea, his eyes red from what I assumed was a sleepless night.
I'll sign over the house,
he said quietly.
And I'll move out by the weekend.
I nodded, not trusting myself to speak.
I am sorry, Finny. Truly sorry.
I looked at him then. This man I had loved for a decade, now a stranger to me. I believe you are sorry, Elisha, but not for what you did, only that you got caught. He flinched as if I had struck him but didn't argue. In the days that followed, Elisha moved most of his belongings out of our home. Friends and family members called, confused by the sudden separation. I told them the truth, not to spite Elisha, but because I refused to live with secrets anymore. Some judged me for not trying to save the marriage. Others praised me for my strength, but their opinions mattered less than my own peace of mind. As for Mercy, I never confronted her. Her deception hurt, especially after the friendship we had developed, but in a strange way, I pitied her. She was now tied to a man who had proven himself capable of extraordinary deception. I wondered if she ever worried that what he did with me, he might one day do to her. 3 months after Elisha moved out, the divorce was finalized. The Aja house was transferred to my name. I didn't move in. Too many ghosts lingered there. Instead, I sold it and used the proceeds to start a new chapter. I returned to my maiden name, Fini Nwosu, and launched a small event planning business. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who planned her husband's secret wedding, now planning joyful celebrations for others. But I was good at it. Very good. On the 1-year anniversary of my discovery at the mall, I received a message from Elisha. Attached was a picture of a baby boy with his eyes and Mercy's smile.
His name is Graham.
The message read,
After my brother who passed away 12 years ago, the brother I pretended was still alive. I thought you deserved to know the truth, finally. I am sorry for everything, Fini. I hope one day you can forgive me.
I stared at the picture for a long time, feeling neither anger nor pain, just a dull acknowledgement of what might have been. Then I deleted the message without replying. Some lies are too big for forgiveness. Some betrayals cut too deep for healing. But survival, that I could do, and thrive, that was my plan. As I closed my phone and returned to planning a client's anniversary celebration, I realized that the greatest act of self-respect wasn't confronting Elisha or securing the house. It was reclaiming my story. No longer was I just the deceived wife. I was Fini Nwosu, a woman who had faced betrayal and emerged stronger, wiser, and determined to write her own happy ending. And that, perhaps, was the most powerful revenge of all.